The community that faced the most restrictions on their freedoms in the last year were those who made a choice not to be vaccinated. I don't think I've ever experienced a situation in my lifetime where a person was fired from their job or not allowed to watch their kids play hockey or not allowed to go visit a loved one in long-term care or hospital or not allowed to go get on a plane to either go across the country to see family or even travel across the border. So they have been the most discriminated against group that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. That's a pretty extreme level of discrimination that we have seen. I don't take away any of the discrimination that I've seen in those other groups that you mentioned, but this has been an extraordinary time in the last year in particular. And I want people to know that I find that unacceptable, that we are not going to create a segregated society on the basis of a medical choice. The community that faced the most restrictions on their freedoms.
Can you believe it, by the way? What an impeccable statement. Impeccable, required no clarification. And I'll tell you why in a second, because the clarification added nothing that was already not in her original statement. This is the new Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. At her press conference, she says what I think a lot of Canadians are thinking. And I'm saying this, people, as one of the individuals who was, in theory, allowed to go to restaurants, go to movie theaters, could have showed the QR code, but made a decision not to, with one damned exception when kids were involved. But she didn't have to say anything more than this, because this is what people were thinking. It's why people elected her. And let's listen to it one more time.
The community that faced the most restrictions on their freedoms in the last year.
Were those who made... Not historically, not throughout the history of humankind, in the last year.
Made a choice not to be vaccinated. I don't think I've ever experienced a situation in my lifetime where a person was fired from their job or not allowed to watch their kids play hockey or not allowed to go visit a loved one in long-term care or hospital, or not allowed to go get on a plane.
And by the way, I'll go get my kid's gym mat to pad up the room. I knew personally, not friend of a friend, personally, people who chose not to get vaccinated literally could not watch their kids play hockey, had to drop them off in the parking lot and sit outside while their kids played hockey. I know personally people who were not allowed visiting people in the hospital. These are not like friend of a friend, one exceptional circumstance. These things happened a lot.
To either go across the country to see family or even travel across the border. So they have been the most discriminated against group that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. That's a pretty extreme level of discrimination that we have seen. I don't take away any of the discrimination that I've seen in those other groups that you mentioned.
We're going to get to the apology that the mob browbeat out of Danielle Smith. I don't take away anything from any of the other groups. I need the black gym mat and put it back up here. No, the black gym mat, because that was the fancy acoustic method. I don't take away anything from any other groups. I haven't seen black people getting fired in the last year for being black. I have seen black people not allowed to go into Canadian Tire because, statistically speaking, which is why it was a racist, unscientific policy in the first place, certain demographics were less likely to get vaccinated. So what was, in theory, a race-neutral policy, in practice was not. In reality was not. But she's saying here, I haven't seen, Jews not allowed into McGill University. I haven't seen blacks getting fired and all. It happened, and it was atrocious when it did. In the last year, that's not the type of discrimination we've seen. So I'm not taking anything away from other groups historically who have suffered discrimination. Oddly enough, same groups experiencing discrimination again because of this.
But this has been an extraordinary time in the last year in particular. And I want people to know that I find that unacceptable, that we are not going to create a segregated society on the basis of a medical choice.
We're not going to create a segregated society on the basis of a medical choice. like Justin Trudeau, like Francois Legault, like Doug Ford actually did. A segregated society based on a medical decision. Based on a decision that people didn't feel comfortable injecting something into their bodies that had barely been around for a season of, I can't think of a television show that just came out this year. Yeah, no, people don't want a foreign experimental procedure injected in their body. No, God forbid. Selfish bastards. I'm going to play Keith Olbermann's psychotic rant. Danielle Smith gave that speech. And I said, that's why people elected you, Danielle. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was unapologetic. It was not unsympathetic. It was not insensitive. It was not callous. It was not tone deaf. But the mob browbeat an apology out of Danielle Smith. And I'll tell you this, I like Danielle Smith, and I felt maybe that my tweet was a little harsh, but everything reads harsher than the tone in which I intended, at least, afterwards. They browbeat an apology out of Danielle Smith. And I'm going to say this. Some people are going to say, she didn't apologize. And you know what's funny? Both sides are saying that. She didn't apologize, so I'm still not forgiving her. She didn't apologize, so she still has backbone. You actually allowed the crybabies to browbeat an apology out of you. They will never forgive you, and you lost the support of people who thought they finally had a leader with a backbone. And let me read her clarification of what was a very clear and a very beautiful statement. Are we looking at the same thing here? We are. I feel bad because it reads harsher than it was not intended to be that harshly drafted, but everything reads harsher on Twitter. One day, Elon Musk will put in the sincerity emoji, but whatever. I wanted to clarify my comments at yesterday's press conference. Here's my full statement. Already a problem, Danielle. You didn't need to. More is less. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Yeah, more is less. Less is more. You're gonna make people happy. You're gonna make anybody who listened to you and thought that you were being racially intolerant. You're gonna convince them. Oh yeah. Statement regarding press conference comments, October 12, 2022. Yesterday, I made comments regarding the discrimination of unvaccinated individuals. Yesterday, I made comments regarding the discrimination unvaccinated individuals have suffered through during the past 2 years. My intention was to underline the mistreatment of individuals who chose not to be vaccinated and were punished by not being able to work, travel, or in some cases, see loved ones. I want to be clear that I did not intend to trivialize in any way the discrimination faced by minority communities and other persecuted groups, both here in Canada and around the world, or to create any false equivalencies to the terrible historical discrimination and persecution suffered by so many minority groups over the last decades and centuries. Nobody thought you did that, Danielle, because you specifically said, I'm not taking anything away from any other groups that you mentioned, presumably other minority groups. Nobody thought you said that, except people who do not care what you have to say. They got you to bend the knee, and they're reveling in it. We need to actively work together as Albertans and Canadians to end all discrimination against minority communities. Danielle, things that don't need to be said. Anybody who needs to say this, as far as policy goes, it's a Justin Trudeau thing. It's a Jagmeet Singh thing to say something like that. Good people who don't have discriminatory bones in their bodies don't need to walk around saying this. I'm also committed to listening, learning, and addressing the issues affecting minority communities. Now you're groveling, Danielle. They're not going to accept this apology. Over the next few days, my office will be reaching out and setting up meetings with minority stakeholders so I can better understand the different concerns of their individual communities. Well, now, Danielle, you have just basically tacitly admitted, for whatever the reason, that you're ignorant to the concerns of minority communities. Why would you say this? What does this add? What does this add? It looks groveling in the last paragraph. It is the mob having browbeat you into clarifying that which clarifies nothing, because you said this more succinctly in your statement. And then it undermines I'll call it an atrocity of what the governments have done to unvaccinated people over the last 2 years, setting aside the atrocities that I think they might have actually done to the vaccinated people as well. Now I'm projecting, maybe. I don't think I am. You don't need to make a press statement saying, I'm going to try to understand the discrimination faced by minority groups. First of all, it's most people understand that already. No one would presume that someone is ignorant to the historical discrimination that Black Canadians, Black Americans have suffered, Indigenous Canadians. I mean, Trudeau walks around apologizing for the atrocities committed by previous governments, including his own fathers, oddly enough, while committing very similar atrocities against other groups in real time. She apologized. And the irony is that people are saying she didn't apologize. She still got courage. If that's how you read that statement, fine. And then the irony is the other side. She didn't apologize. It's even worse now. She was insensitive to minorities, insensitive to racism, insensitive to discrimination, equating the treatment of the unvaccinated with the historical treatment of other minority groups. What's wrong with the comparison? That things don't have to be equally horrible to be analogous in a moral sense. Oh, well, I guess we can't compare the Holocaust to the Armenian genocide because one had so many more than the other. They're not comparable. I'm sorry. Genocide is genocide. Discrimination is discrimination. It can be more or less severe, greater or lesser in quantity. But getting up there on the stand and saying the discrimination against the unvaccinated over the last 2.5 years has been atrocious. It should never have been tolerated in the first place, and we should do what we need to do in order to ensure that it never happens again in the future, which is exactly what we said after other eras of discrimination. It doesn't have to be identical in scope, extent, and number in order to be comparable in moral depravity. Testify. How's everybody doing? It's Saturday. I couldn't get a stream out yesterday. I felt morally compelled to at least attend one of the 2 streams that Hunley was putting on yesterday. And it was good and it was worth it. But I couldn't get a stream in. I got 3 kids out of school. I let them fend for themselves in the other room. I come back. They're watching Unspeakable, eating freaking icing. They're eating icing out of the container. Where is it on Rumble? I want to make sure that we're on Rumble. Are we live on Rumble? I haven't checked. Okay, give me 1 second just to make sure that we're live on Rumble. Going down to my windows. How is everybody doing? It's holy crab apples, people. We are going to be going through some of the hearings, some of the Emergency Act inquiry hearings. We're live on Rumble. Awesome. And let me see here. We got this. Okay, so we're good. We're good. So that's it. I liked Danielle Smith. I liked what she had to say, and she said what a lot of people needed her to say. She did not need to apologize. And that apology, it's not a question of not apologizing, people, when you've done something wrong. Or when you think you've done something wrong, or when you accidentally, inadvertently insulted someone, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with apologies. And I think when you've done something wrong, you should apologize and not be too proud to admit it. But that's not an apology. That's bending the knee, groveling for forgiveness from people. Anybody who heard that and thought that she was being insensitive to other forms of discrimination is a liar, is intellectually dishonest, and will never be reached in the first place. Okay. Oh, so now, we're going to go through the Emergencies Act inquiry. We're going to move over to Rumble exclusively at some point sooner than later. But we've got other stuff on the menu that's not just Canadian inquiry stuff. On the subject of raging psychopaths who will never be pacified because their outrage is disingenuous. Oh, that's because I'm not a good one. Keith Olbermann, whoever just accused me of projecting a little bit too much. I'm sensitive to it. I appreciate the criticism. You want to see some confession through projection? Is this Keith Olbermann here? So how do I do this? Here we go. It's a little long.
Coddling the people who won't get the shot. Booster shot. Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Thanks for showing us your papers, Keith. Oh, it's not the same. Literally has papers. So he could go into his friendly, fancy little coffee shop in New York who ask for the papers in order to enter. By the way, is this the view from his apartment? Because that's ridiculous. That view of Central Park, can't tell where. Hey, Keith Olbermann, proud minion.
Time to stop coddling the people who won't get the shot.
Stop coddling the people who won't get the shot. It's like, you know, I can't even think of an analogy. People think it's just a shot. It's just a needle. It's not the needle that people are afraid of. It's what's in it. Cyanide could come in just a needle. Your fear of the needle is not the needle. It's what's in it. Oh, just get a shot, you sissies. The same people who argue against gender stereotypes affirm those very same gender stereotypes. But look, proud Keith. Show us your papers, Keith. My goodness. He's a good boy. He's got his papers. Wait until
Booster
you hear
shot.
Booster
Mission
shot.
accomplished.
Oh yeah.
And it is time to stop coddling them, the ones who won't get the damn shot already. And our first step, you and I, is symbols, the language we use. We call these people vaccine hesitant, vaccine skeptics, anti-vax. We say they're protesting mandates. And
by the way, he's reading. His eyes are going down there. Dude couldn't even remember his rant by heart because it's so sincere and it's so authentic. He needs to draft it. How many times did he practice this? Get his little blue screen so he can get the points out there. Snowflakes. Remember snowflakes.
Passports. They're making a personal choice. They're waiting for more information. They're making a medical decision. Bullshit. They're afraid. They're afraid to get vaccinated.
He's actually frothing at the mouth. They're afraid. They're afraid to get vaccinated. That is pure projection. This man, how many times is he going to do it? Because he's afraid of the Rona. And that's fine and that's fair. Fear is not always a bad thing. Afraid to get vaccinated? How about we've made a calculation? Some people, I can't even put myself in this boat, although I'm not getting the booster, but how many people have made a calculated decision to say, yeah, this experimental thing as designated by the NIH, I'm not afraid of injecting foreign bodies into my body. It's not a question of fear. It's a question of basic common sense. Not afraid. I'm just not doing it. I'm also not licking a lamppost in the middle of winter or licking the handrail in a New York subway. You're afraid. It gets worse. He's a psychopath.
Stop feeding their egos about what they're doing. Stop
He's actually frothing at the mouth.
vaccinated.
Look, right now.
Stop feeding their egos about what they're doing. Stop legitimizing it. Vaccine hesitant, they're afraid. Vaccine skeptics, they're afraid. Anti-vax, they're afraid. They're protesting mandates and passports. They're afraid.
This makes me uncomfortable. This is an unhinged, unwell individual projecting all of his fear onto others who are not afraid of the Rona. And by the way, Keith, if the vax works so well, you're afraid of people who didn't get vaxxed. You're not even afraid of, you're not only afraid of the Rona, you're afraid of people who didn't do what you think is protecting yourself. That's logic right there.
They're making a personal choice. They're afraid. They're waiting for more information. Afraid. They're making a medical decision to be afraid. The snowflakes are afraid. Afraid of the vaccine.
Does he rewatch this and think it makes him look good, sane, logical, and rational? I genuinely want to know, Keith, do you look back on this and say, I don't know what time of day it was. It's either sunset or sunrise. It might be, I won't make any jokes. I was going to make a joke about a martini, which would have been a little bit of projection, but I still don't, I weigh my words even after a martini.
Afraid of being proved wrong. Afraid of doing what anybody else in the world tells them to do. Afraid of needles.
Oh, that's it. You're so smart, Keith. It's the needle. It's the needle. So someone should present to you a needle filled with cyanide and see if you want to inject it and say, oh, you're afraid of the needle? It's just a little needle. Oh, you're afraid of the stuff that's inside it. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
Psycho.
no more pleasant euphemisms about what's going on here. Apart from the people who have legitimate medical complications about vaccines, we have to stop coddling the morons who will not get the shot. We start by calling them what they are. They are all snowflakes and cowards and idiots and losers. And most importantly, they are afraid.
I mean, that is next level psychosis. That is next level. That no one should ever forget that. No one should ever forget. No one should ever forget what some people forced others to do, what some people shamed others for not doing, the rage, the seething hatred that they promoted against it. No one should ever forget. And by the way, I'm going to get to a super chat because I just noticed someone brought up something. And you reminded me. Thank you very much. Hold on. The super chat was Notley, NDP. I think you meant NDP. Alberta Socialist Leader hates the non-vaxxed. Cowboy Buster, thank you for reminding me. Because I gave the apology that I think Danielle ought to have given. Here it is. This is the apology that Danielle Smith ought to have given. I'll give the apology AB Danielle Smith should have given. Rachel Notley, I'm sorry you support unscientific and discriminatory policy. I'm sorry NDP supports unconstitutional and inhumane charter violations. And I'm sorry that you are too stupid or dishonest to understand that. Yes, I inspired myself from Stewie from the Family Guy, talking to Brian. I'm sorry that, oh, was it? No, it was from the Family Guy. It was Mel Gibson's apology. Classic. Obviously, we'll not play that here. Classic back when the Family Guy used to be funny. I'm sorry. It's the classic apology where you're insulting the person in the apology. That's my apology, Danielle Notley. And let's not forget the enforcer herself, Rachel Notley, the new Democrat Party. More like the new, I could substitute the N for the other socialist word. The Yahtzee Democrat Party. This is her. This is Rachel Notley, the person who demanded that Danielle Smith apologize. Vaccine passports are key to fighting COVID-19. I'm challenging every UCP, MLA to call for mandatory vaccine passports for non-essential business and call them vaccine passports too. No more political games. Little Notley taking a little playbook from, say it, the Nazi Democrat Party. That's the joke, but a joke, truth in jest. Call it what it is, papers. Let's call it what it is, Rachel, papers. Papers for citizens to have equal rights. Or papers to discriminate against citizens. You and Jagmeet Singh have really turned the NDP into a disgusting entity that Leighton would be ashamed to have seen. Disgusting. I'll say that. That's the apology Danielle Smith should have given. A proverbial middle finger to Notley, who was the one out there clamoring, demanding an apology from Danielle Smith. The NDP, the party of the people. Call it what it is. A vaccine passport. Okay, I'll call it what it is. Discrimination that is documented by papers that create second-class citizens out of Canadian citizens. Not identical to other forms of historical discrimination, but my goodness, does it rhyme. Okay. It's going to be a random rant of a Saturday afternoon. We're going to get. We'll do the hearing. We'll do the hearing after we move on over to a Rumble exclusive, so that portion, when I publish it, will not have a break in it. So we'll try to go with something of not a theme, but rather when we break to move on over to Rumble exclusively, we'll go subject matter specific so that it will not be broken up. Let's just get this one out of the way. Let's get this one out of the way. Oh my goodness. They've voted to subpoena Donald Trump. This is a piece of wood, by the way. It's just a beautiful piece of driftwood that we kept. They voted to subpoena Donald John Trump. Ms. Cheney, the woman who's, I don't know who she speaks for anymore because she got booted out of office by shameful margins.
Chairman, at some point, the Department of Justice may well unearth the facts that these and other witnesses are currently concealing. But our duty today is to our country and our children and our Constitution. We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set this all in motion. And every American is entitled to those answers, so we can act now to protect our republic.
Protect the
So this
republic from
afternoon,
people like you, Liz.
I am offering this resolution that the committee direct the chairman to issue a subpoena for relevant documents and testimony under oath from Donald John Trump in connection with the January 6th attack on the United States.
Attack. Have they toned it down from domestic terrorist attack? And then these clowns.
Aye.
Those poses.
They just go through that like they're like
in the opinion.
it's literally like seals in a circus. They go one by one. Yeah, aye. And they're so important. They're like the most important people on earth. They've got a big podium.
Ms. Cheney.
They're in buildings
Aye.
built to
Ms.
gods.
Cheney,
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Lofgren.
Oh, Miss Lofgren.
Ms.
Aye.
Lofgren, aye.
Aye. Oh, here, pathological
Schiff.
liar, Schiff. Schiff for brains. What does he say?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Schiff.
It's so
aye.
hard. Oh, Aguilar. What do you
Mr.
have to say?
Aguilar.
Aye.
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 Mr. Aguilar, aye.
We're after the truth.
Mrs. Murphy.
Aye.
Aye.
Mrs.
Aye.
Murphy, aye.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mr. Raskin.
Aye.
Another liar, Raskin.
Mr. Raskin, aye. Mrs. Luria.
Aye.
Mrs.
Oh, yeah.
Luria, aye. Mr. Kinzinger.
Kinzinger, the man who cried during the January 6th hearings. Look at this. Look at this face. I mean, this is.
Zinger, aye.
Mr. Kinzinger, aye.
They're the most important people on earth. They've built monuments to them. They have podiums. They have microphones. They get paid to sit around and
Duty
piss around taxpayer dollars. But hold on.
today is to our country and our children and our Constitution.
Okay, thanks. I heard that part.
We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set this all in motion.
Ray Epps? Oh no, Ray Epps was just a schmuck, according to Raskin. Just an innocent schmuck trying to survive. No, not Ray Epps. They want to go after Trump, who started it all by saying, "Fight peacefully, or you won't have a democracy anymore." On the same day when Nancy Pelosi's, I hope Trump comes down. I'm going to punch him right in the face. I'm going to punch him right in the face. Then I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be happy. Oh, they're going to go out. Ask Nancy Pelosi why they didn't have National Guard ready. Oh, they were half staffed because of COVID. For what they knew was coming, because it was, in the works. FBI knew about it. Intelligence knew about it. It was on the internet. They got protest passes. Ask why they were at half employee staff because of COVID. They don't need National Guard. Now, I said I wasn't going to wear this gray shirt again, but I thought the room was cool enough, and I'm still sweating. And now you're going to see me sweating, and I shouldn't have drawn attention to it. It's outrageous. Now, let me read some super chats. I didn't get the super chats, and I didn't give the disclaimers. No medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. If you can, check out the video from Christian Terrace, European meeting with CEO Pfizer, Albert Bourla. You will fall off your chair. Oh, you will fall off your chair. Okay, well, let me screen grab that and just try to get that afterwards. Thank you very much, Just Me Nicole. Teague Materi says, I would love to see your 100 plus hours in this GOAT show trial. So we're going to get to that in a second. I'm texting a few people to see if it's probably too late to try to get in as a witness, but who knows? Maybe I can squeeze in and fly up for a day. Tell them what actually happened. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. When I was injured, I wasn't allowed in the hospital to pick up my blood work and echocardiogram. Still not allowed back to work as a paramedic. Chet Chisholm. But don't compare that to other historical injustices because that might upset people. Thank you very much, Grace's Greek. How soon should Canadians be tested in their homes? I'm not sure I understand. Never forgive, never remember, never forget, remember to forgive. Pasobic put out I'm not a religious person, people, but the Bible has good lessons. When, what was it? I forget what it was. When your brother commits a wrong, reject, and when they apologize, forgive. Leighton was a great man. He would be appalled. He was, and he would be. And it's like morality is gone. There's no standard anymore. Jagmeet Singh out there like robo tweeter, greedy people. They're just buffoons. They're just buffoons and they're dishonest. And there's no reaching them. And they are, for some reason and for whatever the reason, in control. Isn't the current booster rate at 5%? So 95% snowflakes. Yeah. Or a lot of people saw a lot of the stuff that happened. And I said, you know what? Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were onto something. Maybe when Albert Bourla comes out and says 100% effective, 100%. And then a year and a half later, they're saying, I never said 100%. You're crazy. I mean, I'm having a discussion with people who are coming out and saying publicly and not ironically, not satirically, they never said it would stop transmission. Hey, look at it. Here's one. Official fact checkers are claiming no one said the vaccine would prevent transmission and spread COVID. And then you get Joel Dimmock. I thought it said Joel Dimcock. It's Joel Dimmock. Purports to be a journalist. Hello. The claim related to severe disease symptoms, not transmission. Lying will only harm your cases, dudes. To which I said, calls people dudes is the first giveaway. That's trolling antagonism on Twitter. The inability to read and understand plain English was the second. 100% effective in preventing COVID-19 cases in South Africa. 100%. Plus the follow-up tweet. Oh, that was. And then the follow-up tweets. They're actually trying to gaslight the public now into thinking they never sold the vax as preventing transmission. It's amazing. But maybe the people who said, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon of this brand new technology that has never been used before in vaccination, mRNA, messenger RNA. What was the RNA? What did the RNA stand for, people? I forget what the RNA stood for. But yeah, maybe I'm not putting this. They were calling it gene modification therapy at the beginning. And some people out there, myself included, like, that sounds a little extreme way of describing it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it is. What was I looking for in the background here? I was looking to see what else we had on the menu. Oh, no, I was trying to get the Rumble stream. Let me just see. I'm going to get the Rumble link posted there so we can all move over, and we're going to get mRNA, ribonucleic acid. Okay, thank you. Never, ever apologize, especially as a public figure, because the MSM don't give a damn and they'll turn it upside down. I disagree. I apologize when you do something wrong that you didn't mean. Like, for example, I did not mean to insult Konstantin Kiesin by not inviting him on my channel for a live stream. I didn't mean to insult him with that. And in one of the tweets where he says, I've never been invited on his channel, I say, I will apologize but anyways, we've made up for that. I'm just saying, if you've done something that you genuinely feel bad about, you apologize to the person that you have wronged. But yeah, but apologizing to clarify so that you could try to placate people who are never going to forgive you, hell or high water. Yeah, that's where you just give them more fodder. Oh, she didn't apologize. She made it even worse. It wasn't a categorical apology. It was an equivocal. She didn't learn her lesson. She knows that she did something wrong, and she still can't bring herself to apologize. Okay, I'm just taking some pictures of the screen. Okay, here we go. Everybody, let's move on over to the east side. All right, I wasn't able to get all this stuff done before going live. I needed to go get it's called a green killing machine for the fish tank, because it seems the fish tank has turned into swamp water. A link to Rumble, and I'll pin it so that people can get there after this ends. Took the kids to the beach because when they say they want to go to the beach, you got to take kids to the beach. Oh, look at that. I brought up the screen. I can't do the entire stream like this. Okay, hold on. Okay, so the link is there. Everyone's got it. Viva, if it's too warm for you, come back home. It's getting cold. Susan Eckstein. I saw pictures of fall up in Canada. It's beautiful, and I'm homesick to some extent. So, what was I about to say? New member, A for Justice. Thank you very much. I have not been good on my perks for members, so I do apologize for that. But welcome to the channel. Thank you for the support. Okay, everyone's got the link. Mosey on over to Rumble. And I'm just going to make sure that we got all of the Emergency Act Commission stuff going on. Oh, yeah. Okay, I think I did it. Member of Canadian Parliament. Okay, that's Canadian. Wow. One more thing before we go. One more thing. Chris Hayes. On the subject of confession through projection, listen to this, people. Listen to this. The world is crazy when people are not aware.
27 days away, Republicans appear to think they have the advantage on the economy. Big part of that is just that the party that's out of power, because the party that is out of power does.
This guy can't even get his lies straight. They have the advantage on the economy because the economy's in shambles. And there might just be one person, or at the very least, a dominant party to blame for that. Although I think the blame goes on both sides. But
doesn't have the White House will typically run against the status quo. And right now, a big part of the status quo is inflation. People don't like it. According to the latest tracking poll, the economy is the #1 issue people would like to hear candidates talk about, ahead of abortion and immigration. But if the economy is the #1 issue to voters, then there is one party that will have an incentive to make it better. And that party is the one that has the presidency, the Democrats. The other side,
the party that has an incentive to make the economy better is the party that's been in power and has driven the economy into the ground. They have the incentive to make it better. That's what they got elected to do. They don't have the capability of making it better. That's why they need to get the hell out. Oh, they have the incentive to make it better because they want to stay in power. Yeah, they're in power. They screwed everything up, printing cash, shipping cash to finance foreign conflicts, opening the borders. Oh, yeah. They screwed up. They had the incentive to do good. They didn't because they don't want to or they can't. Wait until you hear the pretzel logic confession through projection as to what Chris Hayes, by the way, Chris Hayes was the guy in the picture with Rachel Maddow who never answered me as to why he had the Christian Front Nazi propaganda book under his arm in a picture that he posted to Twitter, but setting that aside.
Republicans have an explicit incentive to make the economy worse. And I will tell you, having covered the Tea Party Congress of 2011 amidst the recovery from the financial crisis, I feel confident in predicting that if Republicans win control of one or both houses of Congress, they will do everything in their power to sabotage the economy, to best set them up to retake the White House in 2024.
People, what did you just hear there? What did you just hear there?
I feel confident in predicting that if Republicans win control of one or both houses of Congress, they will do everything in their power to sabotage the economy, to best set them up to retake the White House in 2024.
Does that not sound exactly like what some people might accuse the Democrats of having done pre-2020? Get control of one or both of the houses, tank the economy so you can blame Trump and then get him voted out of office. It sounds a little bit, his prediction for what he thinks other equally evil people like himself would do in the future sounds a lot like what some people might say, suggest, think, feel, believe the Democrats did back in 2020. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. They're going to take control of one or both of the houses, like the Democrats did back in 2018, 2020, I forget when, so they can tank the economy like they did by shutting down the world, to blame the president like they did, so they can take back the presidency like they did after having heavily fortified the election. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I say once you see it, you can't unsee it. I just genuinely ask myself, am I seeing it where it doesn't exist? I'm going to go ahead and answer my own question and say no. Viva, if we have something to send you for viewing informative pleasure, where can it be sent? I shut down my david@vivafrei.com email address. There's a P.O. box. The info is in the About on YouTube. So you can find it there. And otherwise, I'm not hard to find, digitally speaking. They're going to take back one or two so they can tank the economy so they can win the White House. Oh, yeah. The fact that this guy would think people would sacrifice citizens for political gain tells me more about Chris Hayes than it does about the people against whom he's making the accusation. Okay. Your pits are wet. Yeah, dude. Hold on. It's too late. It's too late. The embarrassment is there. And my chest as well. Right here. Oh, yeah. Well, hold on. While everyone goes over to Rumble, at the very least, what I can do is show everyone where they can get good merch. I'm not good at selling my own stuff. Viva Frei, people, if you want some merch, that's my wife. This is the store. Politics Ruins Everything. And you got a bunch of stuff here. It's good stuff. There, link here. Okay, now we are definitively moving over to Rumble. People, let's go there. We're going to go over some of the highlights from this gong show of what's it called? That's not the exact name. The Emergencies Act inquiry. I'm not even going to describe what it is because I want it to be in one piece for viewing consistency. Go to YouTube, ending it on YouTube. Go to Rumble, ending it on YouTube. Right now, I might have to change shirts because now I've made myself uncomfortable. Okay, ending on YouTube in 3, 2, 1. Now, I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. Okay, we got it. We're good. Let me see here. And we got 2 Rumble rants. I just missed another one that was a blue one. I took pictures of them. Let me read the Rumble rants before we get started. Terry Lee 3000 says, finally, closet case bigots now have a systematically approved outlet for venting their rage. Cruel cowardice. Hold on. Finally, closet case bigots now have a systematically approved outlet for venting their rage. Cruel cowardice. I think that's about Keith Olbermann. I don't think that would be an insult to our crowd. And then we got Sue's Day. Ahoy, Viva. It would be incredibly helpful if you and Barnes could take a look at Michigan's Proposition 3. If it passes, it will put protections for what was done to Chloe Cole into the state constitution. Wilk K667 says, confession through projection. That is one of the best shirts that we have, if I do say so myself. NSA is always listening. Real Truth 2022. I operate on that basis. Everyone's like, Viva, get Telegram so I can message you privately. I was like, first of all, I don't believe that that's any more private. And it's only a matter of time before even having those apps is itself an act of criminality. And I don't do anything or say anything, but under the presumption that somebody's watching, somebody's listening, someone's hacking, and it will potentially one day become public knowledge. That is how I live my life. It's painful. And Barbisa Ariane says, Viva. Oh, Barbisa Ariane says, Viva, something weird is happening. What is that, Barbisa? Should I change my shirt also, by the way, while I'm thinking of this? Pfizer macht frei. Yeah, Barbisa, let me know what that is, because now you've actually perked my intrigue, tweaked my intrigue. PayPal will take money from my bank account. You know, it's like that Maddox X mission. I don't know if anybody remembers Maddox X mission, but back in the day, it was one of the funniest things he's ever done on that website, the best page in the universe. He wrote a piece about one of those when you buy tickets, one of those places where you buy airline tickets. And they basically sold him an impossible itinerary where he had to get from like one terminal to another terminal within 30 minutes, but it's like an hour and a half apart, so it was impossible to do. And he says, so you basically sold me an impossible itinerary. It's going to be the most expensive $1,500 you've ever made. If PayPal wants to do it, they've announced that it was a mistake. It was a draft that they accidentally published, yada, yada. If they do it, it'll be the most expensive $2,500 they've ever taken from anybody. JDN347 says, when are you making Barnes' shirt that says, don't bang crazy? I can't make a shirt that says that. I can't make the shirt that says that. Mental illness disorders are prevalent in this chat as well. Something weird is going on. Okay. I'm not taking the shirt off. The only question is, do I go change to be less self-conscious, or am I going? I'm going to live with it. So hold on a second. I'm also just going to go put the link to Rumble in the YouTube. Oh, come on. Sorry, I'm trying to get the link to Rumble. I'm not going to be able to do it. Gosh darn it. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm going to put the link to Rumble in the pinned comment on the YouTube video so that people can find it here. And then merch. And then we're gonna get going on this hearing. VivaFrei.com. Locals. Putting the link to locals. www.vivabarneslaw.locals.com, which is the best place to support if people want to support. You can become a member. There is no need for financial support. There's a ton of content that is not behind any sort of a paywall. There's a lot of content that is behind some form of a paywall for commenting for the supporters, but you can go join. We have exceeded 100,000 members in that community. Non-paying members, but we're over 100,000, and a ton of the content on vivabarneslaw.locals.com is not behind a paywall, and it's a great place to be, if I do say so myself. vivabarneslaw.locals.com from Rob A. Okay, people, the Emergencies Act inquiry. For those of you who don't know, but I think all of you do, Ottawa protest convoy, we're not going over that. Violently suppressed by Supreme Leader Justin Trudeau, the worst man in the history of Canadian politics, in my humble opinion. Justin Trudeau, after 3.5 weeks of ignoring the protesters, claiming he had COVID, fleeing the capital to go hide somewhere in British Columbia, refuses to engage in any way whatsoever with the protesters who descended on Ottawa, parked their big rigs on Wellington and in the downtown core on Parliament Hill for 3.5 weeks, refused to engage. Despite there being apparent breakthroughs in negotiations as disclosed by the RCMP, no. Trudeau didn't want a resolution. He wanted to bust heads. And so he did. He invoked the Emergencies Act, which is the replacement for the War Measures Act, the War Measures Act. Basically, it's the nuclear weapon of Canadian legislation to do whatever is needed to end a national crisis. There's criteria that need to be met in order for it to be invoked. There's certain thresholds that need to be breached. Has to be a national emergency, a risk of infrastructure, national infrastructure. People are going to weasel into that and say, well, they blocked a border for a bit. The border blockade, in as much as it ever was any form of a blocking of infrastructure, was over by the time Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act. National emergency for which no existing law is adequate to provide a remedy. Justin Trudeau, bouncy castles, hot tubs, a national embarrassment of his regime on the international scene. He says, no. There's only one way to end this, and that is by declaring the Emergencies Act, coming in with a militarized police and busting heads, pepper spraying protesters, arresting people, and that's what he did. The Emergencies Act legislation itself provides a mechanism of review, transparency, overview, oversight, whatever. Within a certain delay, I forget what it is, it doesn't really matter, of having invoked the Emergencies Act, an inquiry has to be held to determine the circumstances surrounding the invocation of the Emergencies Act. Oh, and by the way, just the ultimate kick in the teeth. He invoked the Emergencies Act. He got Jagmeet Singh, the two-faced liar, to vote in support of the Emergencies Act. Jagmeet Singh, during the parliamentary debate on why it's necessary to invoke the Emergencies Act, says Trudeau has screwed up his response to the protest at every turn. And yet, I'm going to go give him all of the powers under the Emergencies Act. The Emergencies Act, in order for the invocation to be ratified, it's got to go through the House of Commons and then get ratified by the Senate. It went through the House of Commons. There was a debate. It was a laughable, disgusting, disingenuous, dishonest debate. Marco Mendicino there, the minister of whatever, alleged that protesters were threatening women with rape. It said it was totally necessary. They had no option. The House of Commons, all those elected clowns, not all of them, sorry, because it wasn't unanimous like the January 6th committee, but it was pretty damn majority. Jagmeet Singh, the NDP, ratified Justin Trudeau's invocation of the Emergencies Act. Bad man Trudeau, a man who's rigged the system according to Jagmeet Singh, a man who's incompetent according to Jagmeet Singh, a man who is dangerous according to Jagmeet Singh. Well, Jagmeet Singh thinks the way you reward a dangerous, incompetent, corrupt politicians is by empowering them under the Emergencies Act. It then went to the Senate. And it looked like it actually, I spat on my computer. It looked like it wasn't going to pass the Senate. And before it could get approved or rejected by the Senate, 3 days later, regime tyrant Justin Trudeau comes out and says, we've accomplished what we need. I'm rescinding the invocation of the Emergencies Act. Senate, don't go ahead and shut it down. I'm rescinding it. Coward. Dishonest coward. Abusive, dishonest coward. That's what Justin Trudeau is. He did not even let the Senate vote on it to reject it. He rescinded it. After 3 days, because it was such a serious national crisis, national emergency, it took 3 days to resolve. They came in with, Justin Trudeau said, I'm invoking the Emergencies Act. Don't worry. What it doesn't mean, I'm not usurping civil constitutional charter rights. I'm not doing that. I'm not bringing in the military. I'm just bringing in a militarized police force, armored vehicles, Sûreté de Québec, OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, Sudbury Police, RCMP, snipers on roofs. Don't worry, he's not bringing in the military, but he brought in a militarized police force. They came in with horses, stomped at least 1 or 2 protesters. They pepper sprayed, tear gassed, batoned protesters. They discharged a tear gas canister point blank at the leg of a credentialed journalist, Alexa Lavoie for Rebel News. They detonated concussive grenades 10 feet from me. No, but he didn't bring in the military. Anyhow, he shredded the Constitution. He took a great steaming plop, a Trudeau. Wait, there's a pun here. Hold on. A Trudeau. Oh, whatever. There's something in there. I'll think of it. A Pudo. He took a Pudo on the Constitution. He invoked the Emergencies Act, brought in a militarized police force, busted heads, arrested protesters, assaulted protesters, snipers on roofs, drones in the sky, armored vehicles. 3 days later, no harm, no foul. The tyrant has flexed his muscles for the world to see. The embarrassed, cornered animal that is Justin Trudeau flexed his muscle for the world to see. This is what happens if you mess with Trudeau. Froze bank accounts of people who participated in the convoy. Unilaterally authorized banks with immunity, promised immunity, to freeze bank accounts. No due process, no nothing. Okay, that's what he did. Rescinded the invocation, whatever, and now is the time for the inquiry. Now is the inquiry as to whether or not it was justified. The circumstances surrounding. I just noticed the numbers are fluctuating on Rumble. Anyhow, the inquiry to get into the circumstances surrounding the invocation, in theory, it's to hold the government's feet to the fire. It's to hold the government that invoked the Emergencies Act feet to the fire to make sure that they did it for good reason, as a last resort and not as the first resort. And thus far, it's been a goddamn gong show. So I should have said gosh darn gong show. It's going to go on for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, there's going to be 2 weeks of recommendations or something along those lines. Then they're going to, the panel, whatever it is going to take a couple of months to prepare their final report. And unless the time, what's the word I'm looking for? Unless the time frame has changed, the final report will be due by February 2023. It's been a flipping gong show. So we're not going to get into all of it. Basically, the inquiry consists of all interested parties. So you have the Coalition of Ottawa Residents. You have they represent all of the Ottawa citizens, or at least all of those Ottawa citizens who purport to be traumatized, to have been harassed, whatever, phantom honking. They're going to represent the Ottawa citizens who took issue with the protest, who claim to have been aggrieved by the protest. And I have no doubt that many of them were greatly inconvenienced and, yeah, might have had a rough week or two. Not to undermine it, it's just not to ignore the fact that there was loud honking. There was loud protests. Commuting around the city was a little difficult, but I didn't find it impossible because I drove in 13 of the 14 days, found parking, parked legally, never paid for parking, didn't get a ticket, but whatever. So within this inquiry, as you know, the broad overview, all the parties, the interested parties, are going to be represented. So you have the Coalition of Ottawa Residents, OPP. They're going to come in and defend what they did or did not do. You've got a party representing the convoy. You're going to have a party representing the government saying they had no choice but to, whatever. And it's going to go on like this. And each interested party gets to examine and cross-examine. So it's sort of like the January 6th sham, except it is, in fact, not bipartisan is not the right word, but it is adversarial. Because in as much as you have plaintiffs or witnesses for the government, Zexi Lee, the lady who filed the class action lawsuit, you had the members of council, Catherine McKenney, and another guy. In as much as you have people who are interested parties coming up and giving one-sided testimony, they get cross-examined by all, or they get examined by all of the other parties. So if people have diverging interests, it comes out in examination and cross-examination. Okay. I'm only going to show you some highlights because it's nuts. So we'll start with, I need to get to my Twitter feed. Hold on. Okay, we're back to kangaroo court. No, Rapunzel, this is less of a kangaroo court insofar as it's adversarial, because it is adversarial. So I started watching it. People are like, Viva, you're gonna stream it. I'm gonna see if I can't sneak in as a witness or try to get in as a witness because, I think I'd have something to add, and I'd fly up for a day or two to testify. So I'm reaching out to a few people to see if it's not too late. It'll be like that time when I went to that marathon in Mont Blanc and asked if I could squeeze into the kilomètre vertical at the last minute. Okay. So highlights. So I started watching it. I'm not going to live stream this for 6 weeks, but I'm going to live stream it because it's kind of fun. Zexi Lee. We see what I'm looking at here. I just started pulling out some highlights because
anything else?
I started watching it. And they had some interesting witnesses on what was effectively day one. It started on the 13th. Yesterday, they had interesting witnesses. The lady you see on the right is someone, I think she's there on behalf of the Coalition of Ottawa Residents. The lady on the right, her name is Zexi Lee. And the lady on the left is Miss Delaronde. Ms. Delaronde is visually impaired, and so her testimony was largely about how unpleasant the experience was. Someone who's visually impaired relies on their hearing, and life was much more difficult with all of the honking and all of the noise. Zexi Lee, let me just make sure I'm getting her name right. Gosh darn it, come on. That's Catherine McKenna. Hold on. I know Rachel Gilmore, sorry, put out a tweet. I'm going to get to that afterwards, but just to get her name. Sorry, hold on. Zexi Lee is her name. Zeshi Lee, L-I. Okay, we're going to get to Rachel Gilmore's tweet in a second. She's one of the witnesses. She came up and testified, and she said some very interesting things. She filed a class action lawsuit against the convoy, takes credit for having gotten the injunction to prohibit the honking, even though that was effectively by consent of the parties, because even the convoy said, yes, we're not going to honk 24/7, and we understand that we shouldn't. So we're basically consenting to an injunction that prohibits honking with air horns, train horns, and other. It's beyond regular honking. It was sort of like ultra-powered horns. Consented to it. They got an injunction. In that injunction, it said, to the extent that these conclusions are abided by, people can continue to lawfully protest. But here's a highlight of Zexi Lee's testimony.
And Ms. Delaronde, was there anything else that you...
Oh, sorry. So this is Delaronde. Is this the part where she says... so Delaronde, we'll get to all these highlights and we'll do them one at a time. Delaronde actually seriously, plausibly suggested that she might have gotten COVID from the protesters.
And Ms. Delaronde, was there anything else that you experienced that you would consider to be a threat to health or safety?
Just to appreciate, this is the woman who's asking the questions witnesses, as you can tell by the nature of the question. What else? Tell us, did you forget anything else as to how horrifying this 3 weeks of protest was?
The Sunday after the vehicles came in and occupied so close to where I live, the relentless noise was just so unbearable, and I was so exhausted from it. And I called and begged a friend, could you just please, I know you have to walk in and get me out. Can you? Excuse me, can you just please come and get me out? And she did. And 2 days later, we both had COVID. So there were so many people on the street rushing toward us saying we don't have to wear those masks. There's people around. Did I get it from them? I don't know.
I'm just gonna throw that out there. My friend came to visit me. 2 days later, we had COVID. Did I get it from the people on the street who were telling me that I didn't have to wear a mask? I could just outdoor transmission, according to the experts, virtually nil, unless you're making out with people. What did I just do here? Oh, now I've lost the cue. So that was one highlight, which will show you basically the extent, not the extent rather, but the nature of these hearings, the pathology of these hearings. Delaronde is one of the witnesses who seriously suggested that she might have gotten COVID from the protesters on the street because they were allegedly telling her, you don't need those masks outside. And 2 days after her friend came to pick her up, she got COVID. They both got COVID. Okay, no, hold on. We're definitely ahead of where I need to be here. 21 hours ago, I put the segment of Zexi Lee talking about retaliating with eggs. Okay, well, we'll get there in a second. Zexi Lee, who was one of the witnesses for the Ottawa residents, oh, sorry, people. I should have had this in better order. She, in her testimony, and I'll play the clip in a bit, talked about how the Ottawa residents, to get their little retaliation, they might have come across some eggs, and they might have used these eggs on the protesters, and they might have gotten a hold of some eggs and thrown them at the which they did. And I wanted to know whether or not these eggs were frozen, because it was February and it was like -20. Whether or not these eggs, they might have been left on balconies to harden up. I don't know. I'm not saying that they were. I'm just asking. And I would have asked that question, but I don't think it got asked. Some people were saying, no, they were splattering and they were not frozen. But whatever. This is Rachel Gilmore's take. Rachel Gilmore, for those of you who don't know, reporter covering federal politics for Global News. Global News TikTok host, alleged Spice Girl. Okay, whatever. And don't say that Rachel Gilmore always posts nasty emails that she gets. Please, people, if you respect me and my channel, you will not send any nasty emails to people. And I'll say that anybody who does it is actually just trying to sabotage the channel and therefore is no true Viva Frei fan. Setting that aside, she's a journalist. Her take on it, oh my God. Zexi Lee, as residents were being harassed, couldn't sleep, suffered hearing damage. That's a little lofty. And couldn't leave home without help. That might not be anybody's problem but Zexi Lee's if she said that. Some fed-up residents threw eggs from their windows. Truckers complained and police showed up to investigate the egg throwing. Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel. Just so everybody appreciates, I said, so following your logic, egging journalists is no biggie. Because as much as I find you to be a raging, dishonest government propagandist, I would still not tolerate anyone throwing an egg at you, and I would expect the police to investigate if it were to happen. You know why? Because throwing an egg at property is vandalism, and throwing an egg at a human is assault. This is not legal advice. This is freaking Google it. Throwing an egg at someone is not a joke. It is assault. Spitting in someone's face is assault. Throwing a drink at someone is assault. And if that egg is frozen, by the way, it could be very, very, very dangerous. An egg from a high rise is very, very, very dangerous. And don't take my word for it, people. We got to go hear the clip. Let's see if I can find the clip. We're going to get to that Joe Biden clip afterwards. I know that I shared the clip of Zexi Lee saying that. I know that I did. Here we go.
What you mean by the egg throw?
Here we go. Listen to this. Oh, it was a pinned tweet. That's when you pin the tweet, it doesn't appear in your timeline. Listen to this, peeps. This is Zexi Lee in her own words.
Can you describe what you mean by the egg throwing?
Well, there were very large trucks parked everywhere. And in some of these instances, they were parked right next to some high-rise condo buildings. And as a result, some people may have gotten some cartons of eggs and, had their little retaliation and frustration because really, what else could they do?
Can you describe,
Really, what else could they do? Something about the demeanor of Zexi Lee's testimony that drives me nuts.
Describe what you mean by the egg throwing?
Well,
Look at...
There were...
I had never seen her or heard her before this. And I'm now seeing a very, very nasty person. I'm seeing a very, very mean-spirited, dishonest individual. And, some people might have...
Very large trucks parked everywhere. And in some of these instances, they were parked right next to some high-rise condo buildings.
High-rise condo. She's so proud of her wrongdoing.
And as a result...
It's not we did something wrong. It's as a result. They were parked next to some buildings and some eggs just fell out of a window.
Well, some people may have gotten some cartons of eggs and, had their little retaliation in frustration because really, what else could they do?
So there was vandalism. There was violence at the protest. It just happened to come from angry Ottawa residents because, what else could they do? Psycho. What else could they do? So we had to slash some tires. What else could we do? I'm only sending nasty rants to you, Viva. Your hair is frizzy. CLOL, Royal Plague 45. I'm only sending nasty rants to you, Viva. Thank you, Royal Plague. What else could we do? Slashed. What else could we do? We had to beat them up because we wanted to have our little retaliation. What else could we do? So, gosh darn it, stop going there. So, yeah, there was some violence. Zexi Lee, by the way, I'll take this out and you can go watch for yourself. I don't have all of the clips. Zexi Lee filed the class action lawsuit. She works for the government. She works for the federal government in one of their ministries. I forget which. She was very, very uncomfortable answering the question, what agency or what ministerial agency she works for. She works for the government. She only got 3 or 4 people to join her class action lawsuit. That's how popular her class action lawsuit is in Ottawa. It's a class action lawsuit, not a joinder of actions. So the difference is, this is Ontario law, so it might be different. I don't know. I don't think it is. But typically a joinder of actions is a lesser number of individuals suing who have a similar, if not identical, basis for a lawsuit. And they say, instead of having 2 different trials with largely same witnesses, same evidence, let's join the actions and ask the questions at the same time. A different procedural mechanism, but relatively similar to class action, which is there are too many people to practically institute individual actions. The quantum per plaintiff is so low that it makes it inconvenient to file individual lawsuits. So let's join a class together. Let's get a class certified. All of the facts and all of the questions of law are the same for the class. Quantum for the damages might be different. The questions of law are the same. The class can be defined. Join them together, get certification, and you have a lawsuit with many, many plaintiffs for whom it would be impractical to file individual lawsuits. She got a whopping 3 or 4 people to join her class action lawsuits. A government employee, arguably acting as a government agent for reasons that became clear during this hearing, she had other government agents actually basically like handing out her lawsuit, publicizing her lawsuit to the public. One of whom was Catherine McKenney, who's a Somerset City Councillor. We're going to get to her highlights in a second. She was apparently, by the way, in her own testimony, she didn't reach out for a lawyer. A lawyer reached out to her. And I'm not opening the ethics issue there. Ethically speaking, under Quebec Code of Ethics, and I think it's pretty much the same everywhere, attorneys are not allowed soliciting clients. Set that aside. An attorney reached out to her. An attorney which, I don't know if they have a history of representing government agencies. I don't know. But an attorney reached out to her. She had other elected officials, even if they're just city councillors, involved, promoting, helping out with the lawsuit. She's a federal employee. Draw your own conclusions. So her testimony was very interesting in that people in the tweet response were like, whose case is she trying to prove? She's talking about, they walked the streets. They never had any incidents. It was noisy. It was loud. Yes. The blind or the visually impaired de la Ronde, I have no doubt that she suffered great inconvenience. I do question whether or not she got COVID from her friend that came to visit her, or I don't know, from any. I would have asked her what other things she was doing at that time in life, but forget that. I doubt she got it from the protesters on the street. Did she? She doesn't know. Their testimony was not good, and Zexi Li looked absolutely malicious, spiteful, scornful. She looked like she had malicious intent in both the little retaliation and the lawsuit itself. Anyhow, so those were 2 witnesses yesterday. Was there anything good in cross-examination? It wasn't as good as it could have been, the cross-examination or the examination of Zexi Li by the convoy's attorney. But are we still looking at? No, we're not. Okay, but at the stream. Yesterday afternoon, you had Catherine McKenney. Let me just make sure that I don't. Catherine McKenney. Catherine McKenney is the city councillor for Summer. You know what? I could have just done it here. She's the city councillor. The guy testifying next to her, I keep forgetting his name. Their testimony wasn't much better, by the way. I just started picking highlights because it's just glorious. Okay, that's Joe Biden sniffing a girl's hair here. Listen to this. Here.
And Ms. De La Ronde, was there anything else that you experienced that you would consider to be a threat to health or safety?
Because you forgot to mention it, Ms. Delalande. Was there anything else that you consider to be a threat, like thinking you caught COVID from a protester on the street who told you didn't need to wear a mask? And I have no doubt you were wearing your mask. Like, does her mask, if she was wearing a mask, does it not work, or does the mask require both people to be wearing the mask?
So
Okay,
there was.
here we go. This is
you know,
this is Catherine McKinney testifying. Highlight, I forget what it was, but let's listen to it together.
that first weekend, more of a bracing, just to kind of get through the weekend. Started to see almost immediately, and I started to receive emails, and it was on social media, symbols of hatred, you know, swastikas and Confederate flags, you know, pride flags being, you know, targeted.
You know.
So there was fear.
So by the way, my takeaway when she's saying, you know, it's because it's bullshit. Okay. And I'll tell you one thing. I knew of the story of the Nazi flag and the Confederate flag. That's what got me to go down to document in real time live streaming. I didn't even hear at the time about, what did you say? Trans flags? What did you say here?
You know, pride flags.
Pride flags.
Being, you know, targeted.
Not only did I not hear of any pride flags being targeted, it didn't happen. There were people with pride flags and trans flags protesting with the protesters. There were gay activists with the protest, supporting the protest. This is a gosh darn pathological, in-your-face, shameless lie. It's a lie. You know. So when I hear you know now, I know it's bullcrap.
You know, pride flags being, you know, targeted.
You know.
So there was fear. Certainly people that first
Targeted.
weekend who were reporting back to me and calling me and emailing me were fearful, but they were braced for it, and, you know, had been told that it would end on Monday, and waited for that. So after Monday, when it didn't end, it just became, you know, in the words of people who were,
But it's
you know,
predictive.
calling-
It's predictive right now, because she's not even talking about her own knowledge. She's like, you know, because I'm about to say something that I have no personal knowledge of. Other people told
me and talking to me, they felt that they were under a great deal of threat.
Oh, threat. Yeah.
Seniors reporting that they, you know, had trouble going out.
Bullcrap.
They felt threatened when they went into
Lie.
a grocery store.
Lie.
You know,
These, by the way, these are also demonstrably debunked lies. She went ahead, McKinney, and reaffirmed the stealing food from a homeless shelter lie.
residents not being able to leave their apartments. I had to help one couple leave the downtown with a police escort on the first weekend. There was a pride flag in their window.
Lie.
Their
That
apartment was targeted.
Lie
Somebody
that they were
defecated
targeted.
on the back step.
I interviewed a trans individual at the protest, marching among the protesters. I documented the pride flag being flown with pride at the protest. Lie, McKinney. This is a liar.
And then later that night, you know, a pickup truck with angry people in it came back and were harassing and yelling at them. So
Liar.
at that point, they felt very unsafe, and we had a police escort them out. So it was, you know, a general sense of fear, terror, and dismay that they felt abandoned by their city and by their police.
Terror. They were feeding the homeless. The convoy was feeding the homeless. How do I get out of this window?
So there
people?
was
No.
first week.
Hold on. What's my problem? How do I close this window? What the fudge is my problem?
Weekend.
I don't. And I'm going to back up. I'm going to lose. Okay, what's my problem? Liar. A pathological liar. That repeating the same unsubstantiated, and by the way, and people were saying in response, so surely they have a lot of video to substantiate these statements. Oh no, she makes these statements. They make these statements, and then they show as an exhibit a video that shows horns honking. She talks about harassment, assault, police escorts, Do you have a video of the police escorting those people out of there, McKinney? She makes these bold, outrageous accusations. And then as an exhibit, I don't know in whose mind this evidence is the claim, but it's what they showed. Videos, and you hear horns honking. But they made the statement, and then they showed something. So surely it's got to be, there's got to be some truth to it,
But they were braced for it.
Okay, so that's what we just saw.
Bracing.
Oh, and by the way, here, hold on, let's do this.
Have been told. So there was, that first weekend, more of a bracing.
Forget, I'm not going to play it again, but McKinney repeated the lie that people were being harassed and accosted for wearing face masks. Do you know why I know that's not true? I mean, it's a lie. It depends what you mean by accosted, by the way, because we're going to get into the microaggressions aspect of the testimony from the guy in a bit. I know that no one was accosting or harassing anybody. It was freezing cold outside. People were wearing masks just because it was cold. But most importantly, there were people wearing masks because they didn't want to get identified supporting the protesters. And the protesters knew that. I interviewed a few of them. I didn't put the camera in their face. They said, we're wearing masks because we work for the government, and if we get identified here, we'll get fired. So McKinney, you're a liar. I couldn't do the cross-examination. Why are you lying, McKinney? Excuse me. Do you not believe in karma? Do you not believe in some higher force that might not take kindly to you lying to besmirch the good names of good people? I know that nobody was accosting people as a practice, as a policy, as a philosophy, because people were wearing masks to the knowledge of others and protesters because they did not want to be identified by the cameras, by the forces, by videos. They didn't want to be identified supporting the protests because they would have been socially shunned or lost their jobs. That's how I know. Someone just made a joke about an air conditioning. Hey, Viva, how are you sweating inside in Florida where I know houses have AC? I put the AC at 75 degrees, but I'm in a room that I think might be warmer than the others. Plus, it makes me look like I'm working hard. So, sorry, that's why. We keep the AC relatively high for the environment. Plus, it's too cold. So many places, the AC, it's too cold inside. Can't even, Okay, let's go to another highlight. More narrative-driven lies from McKinney. What's this one about? What's this
I
about?
start to go out that week, walk around. I would go through the convoy, observe. I would meet with residents who were feeling threatened. I delivered.
Lie. Oh, but that might not be a lie, and you'll read the comment as we go. But it's conceivable that people in residential areas noticed people who did not typically hang out in residential areas hanging out in the residential areas. And that is, as a matter of fact, because the downtown core of Ottawa, for anybody who doesn't really know, you have the big street Wellington, and then the other one where they have the shopping centers, and then the market, Byward Market. They're not places where you would ordinarily want to walk at night. There's a lot, and it's not to be judgmental, it's just a matter of fact. There's a lot of homeless people, a lot of drug addiction, a lot of alcoholism, people in parks, public parks, on the street, and relatively aggressive homeless requests for money. Ottawa, downtown Ottawa, is not a place you'd ordinarily want to find yourself at night. And that includes, that's why I went down there and documented the protest at night. I was like, holy crap, I've never felt safer walking the downtown core of Ottawa than now. What ended up happening is that as the protesters took over the streets, salting the sidewalks, shoveling the snow, the homeless people and the people who tend to hang out there at night and are not necessarily up to good stuff got displaced and ended up in more residential areas, ended up doing things in the residential areas that homeless people still need to do because they don't have homes, such as release themselves, which is why some people were noticing that there had been people pooping in public, peeing in public in residential areas. They were quick to blame it on the protesters, but the reality was a lot of the homeless people who typically slept on the streets on Wellington in the Byward Market got displaced into the residential areas. Now let's listen to what Catherine McKinney has to say and who she blames things for.
Food to some people. I delivered pet food to some people in particular who
She's a
were
hero.
living in some of our
Has to
community
emphasize her
housing buildings,
heroism.
who felt very threatened and not able to go out. I organized what we called a safety walk so that we could come out together as a community. And that happened the second week, but we stayed within the residential area away from, where the convoy had taken root.
Why?
We had organized the second one and we called it off because the environment just felt more threatening, and I didn't.
Please elaborate,
fear
Catherine.
Through all of this, and my key concern through all of this
felt
was
more
the
threatening.
safety of residents that I represent, and there was nothing more on my mind than the safety of the people that live in the city and that I represent. So, again, we would get the surge on the weekends, and I have stated before, I will again. I was always careful when I went down, walked through the convoy. I was accosted on a few occasions.
Accosted?
Not
Elaborate immediately. What do you mean accosted, Catherine?
Never felt that I was in any real danger.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never felt that I was in any real danger.
But walking home through the residential streets was always when I felt the most threatened.
You know why, Catherine? Because the homeless people and the drug addicts that typically get relegated to the downtown core dispersed to the residential areas. And you know damn well that's what happened. This is just another case of not in my backyard. Oh, we like having drug clinics where people can do drugs and then, end up elsewhere afterwards. We don't mind the homeless people on Wellington. If you walk Wellington, Parliament Hill, people sleeping on the streets regularly in Ottawa. Oh, but now all of a sudden they're in residential areas and I have to walk over them on my way home. Oh, better blame the protesters.
It's often when I was threatened, homophobic slurs, transphobic slurs, just, people recognizing me, from media or other
homophobic slurs.
So it was more, on the streets going home, it was more those isolated incidents that were the greatest threat throughout and that's what I heard from residents as well. It was uncomfortable. They had to stay safe walking through the convoy, especially.
I'm sorry, but she's talking about them walking in residential areas, not walking through the convoy anymore, where she herself in her own testimony says, I didn't feel threatened. This is a load of crap.
Racialized, but it was outside of that where it was more so the people who were sympathetic to the convoy who were coming into the city and causing that type of.
They were coming into the city, Catherine. They were not going into the residential areas. It's just lies, and damn lies. Here, let's hear what this one was about. Oh, this is the same one. What's this one? Yeah, here, listen to this.
And in terms of any kind of threats to safety, unruly behavior, was any of that type of personal safety issues reported to you, and or did you witness any of that yourself? Councillor McKinney?
I didn't personally witness any acts of violence. I was.
That's odd. That's odd, considering the tenor of your prior testimony. Didn't see anything myself.
I was told about them.
I was told. There's a word for that. Hearsay. There's another word for that. Made up. Lies.
Actually, it was a friend. It was.
Oh, it was a friend of a friend. It was my niece's aunt's employer's best friend's father's roommate. What does that make us? Well, it makes it absolutely nothing.
Reported in the media was.
Reported in the media. My goodness, it's a good thing CBC came in there and said that there were Nazi flags all over the place.
Acts of violence. I was, I was told about them. I had, actually, it was a friend. It was reported in the media. Was she's 70 or was 70 at the time, and She was at the corner
Reported
of
in the media.
Somerset and
Listen to this.
Bronson, and this was on a weekend. And a man who had come into the city, who had flags on him, and
I don't believe a word
and
she's
was
saying right now.
part of the surge, the weekend surge, punched her in the face.
Just came up and
So,
punched her in the face.
That's a friend of mine. It's somebody I know.
Police report immediately. A man in flags just came up and punched her in the face.
I didn't know it was her at the time when it was reported. I found out later that it was her, and someone reported to me that a friend of theirs was wearing a mask on our light rail train, was accosted for wearing the mask, and ended up having his nose broken. But that was, that's not something that I witnessed firsthand. Also, we had instances, where people reported back that, they would try to go out, they were circled by people, intimidating them, asking for police help. It just wasn't there. People just felt very abandoned while there was, while this was happening in their residential area, in their neighborhood. They also had no security. Everything was focused on Wellington Street and north of Laurier, and police just weren't responding to the threats that people felt that they were under. So
the threats that they felt they were under. What a bizarre way of phrasing
calls, it. As I was downtown with people, and just, general lawlessness without any security available for people.
And in
Woman was just punched in the face. Rob A says, play the video of, play the liar witch video. Oh, from liar from Princess Bride. Oh, it's going off in my head every single time. But wait, there's more. And this might be the last of the highlights. But wait, there's more. Listen to this. I forget anybody who knows which city councilor this is, let me know. I just forgot. Listen to this.
There was media reports, and I had discussions with the executive director at Shepherds of Good Hope of the incident around one of the homeless residents who was assaulted and beaten up, and where food was stolen at Shepherds of Good Hope. There were a number of incidents, too many to give you a full description, but there were a number of coffee shops that were remaining open, because coffee is sort of an easy pick up and go environment. And there were a number of incidents where crowds would come into these coffee shops and take over the space and threaten staff. And there are a number of encounters on Rideau Street and in the Barwood Market specifically.
So these were all incidences that were reported to you by constituents or business owners?
Business owners, the staff, and we would take that information, ensure that it was appropriately reported to the authorities, and we'd ask for clarification. At some point through the process, we had a liaison officer who we hope, we were conveying that, and we hope that was following up on these incidents, but they kept happening. I describe them as microaggression because they
microaggressions.
It wasn't the punching in the face, but it was all these microaggressions in transit, walking to businesses, childcare, homeless shelters, a number of these incidents that created an unsafe environment for residents and business operators in the area.
Microaggressions. Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act for microaggressions. By the way, look, I'm going to close this down here. I want to make sure not to. The Shepherds of Good Hope. The story was bunk. I'm trying to find the story. They claim that Ottawa protesters assaulted a homeless person and stole food from a food bank. There was so much food for the protesters. The story doesn't pass the smell tests. Let me just see here. I'm going to see if this is the update. City News did an update. Let's see if I can do this in real time. Here, I'm going to bring this up. Oh, and by the way, the man that you just heard talking later on is going to pretend he doesn't speak English fluently enough to understand the question. We're going to get there. Here, let me see. This is the update. Oh, I'm definitely not signed. So this is the story. Update: convoy protesters seeking food accused of harassing soup kitchen staff. This weekend's events have caused significant strain on our operations at an already difficult time. Okay. The staff and volunteers at an Ottawa homeless shelter say they were harassed by members of the truck convoy protesters on Saturday who were demanding meals from the shelter's soup kitchen. The Shepherd of Good Hope homeless shelter took to social media to share their experience, yada, yada, yada. In the statement posted on Twitter, they say a member of the shelter was assaulted and the security guard was subsequently threatened and called racial slurs while attempting to help. The staff and our volunteers were exposed to verbal harassment and pressure from protesters seeking meals. While we are not certain of exact numbers, the demands for meals and verbal altercations continued for several hours over the dinner period. Let's see here if it's... At least one local business rallied around the Shepherds. Okay, fine, yada, yada. I want to try to find the debunking, as if there was never any evidence above and beyond the social media post. Yeah, I'm sure the protesters called racial slurs to the police. Nothing about this story made any sense. Preposterous from the beginning. It was as idiotic as as idiotic as the Nazi flag and the Confederate flag. But they ran with it. But you got to hear this. We're going to get to the convoy. I think I time-stamped public hearings. That's day 2. Okay, here we go. Where did I timestamp this one? Here we go. Listen to this, people. Listen to this. We'll watch it in real time together. Did I just close down
I'd like
the
to say
stream?
good morning, but it's good evening. So I'll start with yourself, Councillor.
By introducing yourself.
Oh,
please.
first, hi, I'm Brendan from Alberta. I'm Brendan Miller. I'm counsel for Freedom Corp, of which is an organization that represents the protesters as well as the truckers that were in your city in 2022. So, Mr. Fleury, I want to start just asking you a few questions, if you don't mind. Do you remember sending an email on February 4th, 2022 to Kim Ayotte, Steve Kalinakokis, Keith Egile, Serge Arpin, Lucille Coulard, and Liberal Member of Parliament for Ottawa, Senator Yazir Naqvi, with a tweet from the former federal attorney general, Mr. Alan Rock, that stated the city should obtain an injunction to restrain the truck horns on the basis of nuisance. Do you remember sending that email?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna skip forward a little bit here.
So that's under the rules. Means verbal.
In knowledge of,
It is funny, but it's not.
Here we go.
Francophone. Don't.
The term you referred to as microaggression. Is
Listen
that
to
right?
this.
I believe so. Multiple times.
Okay. Is microaggression, is your understanding of that
Listen-
it means
listen to
verbal
this
and environmental
liar.
slights?
Je suis francophone. Donc, si vous voulez être spécifique sur les mots, il va falloir que vous...
I'm francophone, so if you want to ask me specific things about words, you're going to have to ask me in French. You're asking me a theory about how to define something. Unfortunately,
By the way, this man right now, disingenuously invoking his language as a barrier, playing to his language, is exactly the same type of exploitation that was systematically done as relates to gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation. They use it as a political tool in disingenuous manners. This guy just testified for at least, I don't know, an hour? I don't know, they're testifying all afternoon. His English might be better than mine. It's not.
So,
you've heard him testify.
in your
And all of a sudden now, I'm gonna pull out the language card and pretend I don't understand what you're asking.
evidence, you made use of a term you referred to as microaggression. Is that right?
I believe so. multiple times.
Multiple,
Okay.
I believe so, multiple
Is
times.
Microaggression is your understanding of that?
Je
that
suis
it
francophone.
means
Je
verbal
comprends
and
rien de votre
environmental
langue anglaise là.
slights?
Parle-moi en
Je suis
français.
francophone. Donc, si vous voulez être spécifique sur les mots, il va falloir que vous...
I'm
Oh.
francophone, so if you want to ask me specific things about words, you're going to have to ask me in French. You're asking me a theory about how to define something. Unfortunately, my knowledge of English terminology is perhaps not sufficiently appropriate.
Scheißer. Look at
Je m'appelle Brendan.
My name is Brendan.
He doesn't speak French, by the way. When he pronounced the last name of
I think, it is funny, but it's not. I am doing my very best to answer clear questions in English. You asked me a very specific question on a definition.
You asked me
I'm
very
saying, ask me, clarify in French, and I'm glad to specify if it is yes or no. The specificity of the nuance of a word, I'm uncomfortable in responding to your question.
The specificity of the nuance of a word I'm uncomfortable responding to, coming from someone who says, I don't speak English good enough to answer that question. What a pathological, shameless, exploitive liar.
What of the words that I put to you, and there's a few, so means, verbal,
I'm
and
clipping this.
environmental, and slights is confusing.
Respond in French. Listen to her telling him to respond in French.
Is there, which one are you confused about?
Listen to them exploiting identity politics for political purposes. But does she not think we can see what she's doing? Catherine, we can see you. We can hear you. Weaponizing language, the way you weaponize and exploit sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, whatever. Shameless, like nobody's watching.
And there's a
Look
few.
at her.
So
Look at her.
means, verbal, and environmental, and slights is confusing.
Answer in French. Respond in French.
Is there, which one are you confused about?
J'ai expliqué plusieurs fois.
I've already explained.
And he knows damn well that when he responds in French, this guy who doesn't speak French doesn't understand, I think.
Try to express this, and I've explained this to the commissioner, that to my mind, everything in the periphery of the red zone was what I would describe as being microaggressions. I could describe microaggressions to you.
Do it.
For example, go in front of somebody and pull their mask off.
That's assault. That's not a
We
microaggression.
want to describe that as a definition, but that's an example
No,
of a
it's not.
microaggression. Walking into a restaurant, being asked to leave, and sitting down without having the right to stay.
Because you're a dirty unvaxxed. That's a microaggression.
Somebody who's homeless. Beating somebody who's homeless. That's another microaggression.
Maybe he doesn't understand. You know what? I take it back. This guy's an idiot. He might not understand what microaggression is, because what he's describing is assault, and he's describing assaults that never happened. Oh, but his idea of microaggression is when a restaurant owner says, unvaxxed, get out of here, and they sit down nonetheless. That's a microaggression. No, that's not discrimination. That's a microaggression.
Making so much noise at such high volumes that you have to close down a daycare. That's another kind of aggression.
Won't someone think of the children?
That's how I've described aggressions.
That's macro.
Commissioner. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a background in specifics, but I'm trying to use the terminology that I can to be as specific as possible to describe what I received as information and what I was able to see.
Someone get him a pair of these so he can understand what I'm saying in English as well, please.
Oh, that's mean.
Is that possible?
No, he doesn't understand. His English is a problem. Oh, that's mean. You're the victim, Catherine. The man who's been testifying for his English is more eloquent than
do you need this?
95%
Would you
of
like
people
one
out
of
there.
these for when I question you in English, because I'm unfortunately incapable of speaking French.
And I will do my very best to answer in English, but it was a very, I don't need it. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
I
thank
thought you didn't.
So
I like that guy.
You had said that beating up a homeless person was an aggression, at least the translation. That's what it was. That's more of an assault. So had you witnessed any homeless people get beaten up by protesters?
No, I didn't.
No, if you recall my intervention.
Oh, his intervention.
The Shepherds of Good Hope is located at the corner of King Edward and Murray.
Did you see
There
any
was an
homeless people
incident
getting
with a
beaten up by
client.
truck or
The
convoy
executive
people?
director reached out to me to inform me of the incident.
Okay. And were any charges laid?
I have no clue.
Okay. Who was the
That's a-
individual
that's a-
who
that's a
was
no.
beaten?
No
Do you
clue.
know?
I have no clue.
Oh,
Okay. Thanks. So
Look
It
at Catherine.
was
She's very
in
angry. She's
Feb-
very angry next to him. Look at her. You mean we're going to have to prove our allegations? I thought we were friends.
February 4, 2022, you get that email. Were you aware that Chief Solly, as well as the OPP, had recommended that the city get an injunction in January of 31?
So that was among the best highlights. I remember there was one at 5 minutes and 5 hours and 21. Hold on a second here. I think there was one here.
Councillor Fleury, you
Here, listen to this.
By
the way, bear in mind that 3 hours later, he's going to pretend not to understand English. What up?
use the term weapons when describing the trucks, and here in this video we see some unsafe behavior. It appears to show a truck driving in the
It's a
wrong
weapon.
lane against
It's a
traffic
weapon.
on the sidewalk. Did you observe any kind of unsafe use of the trucks, or can you expand on this notion of weaponizing that you mentioned earlier?
Sure. I was describing earlier the Byron Market, where on weekends there would be the surge of folks, and obviously we're used to protests in Ottawa. We're used to events. We're used to Canada Day, where 100,000 people come to the downtown core and celebrate our country. There's enough parking. There's parking underground. There's parking.
Bear in mind, we're on an inquiry for Justin Trudeau having invoked the Emergencies Act. This guy's complaint, parking.
In the Byron Market, paid parking. The rules of parking were not followed.
Declare the Emergencies Act. Bring in the armed police. The rules of parking were not being followed. Let's just hear it again, people.
We're used to Canada Day, where 100,000 people come to the downtown core and celebrate our country. There's enough parking. There's parking underground. There's parking. In the Byron Market, paid parking. The rules of parking were not followed. People would park in any direction, would park on sidewalks in a very pedestrian area. If you know the Byron Market, it's small businesses, storefronts. It's really clear where you're supposed to park and where is the pedestrian route.
Call in the National Guard.
The surge of vehicles, pickups is one of the aspects, and we saw that in different areas of my community. The Bikers Church in Vanier was one area. De La Salle High School was another one. Along Rideau Street and the Byron Market were other areas. Nicholas were others. So there's those incidents of people not following the rules of the road in pickup trucks, which is a different vehicle, which is a weapon in itself. But the weaponized description,
it's a
to me,
weapon
is really the
in
rigs
itself.
Who take space on the street and make noise through the horns that you've shown in video, the fumes, and I know. Reading through the evidence, preparing for this, we weren't informed of Ottawa Public Health and the risk to the health, but we were getting a lot of complaints from business operators and residents in the area of the smells, the intoxication of those smells. Oh, yeah. So the compounding effect of noise, smells, the physical presence, the inability for folks to, in some areas, walk on the sidewalk, walk safely at a crosswalk. We have
how could they not walk safely at a crosswalk? The cars were parked.
Any community, folks with mobility needs, and getting on and off a curb anywhere and everywhere, it doesn't work safely. So that's the description of the weapon, is that truck took space on the road. The truck itself created an environment that was unsafe for the immediate neighbors and made it impossible for what is our responsibility in terms of safety and well-being of residents and businesses in our community to safely live and be in the zone.
A pickup truck is a weapon, people. You heard it here. A pickup truck the guy's not embarrassed. He's not embarrassed, and he's not ashamed of himself. Even a truck, according to them, are weapons. Daphning. I guess I drive a weapon every day. So that's it. I mean, look, those are the highlights that I was able to see. I haven't been able to watch the entire thing. It's too much, but I'm going to do my best to pull the clips that are going to be fun for everyone to listen to. Let me see here. So let me see. That's the essence. I think you've gotten the idea of it. I'm going to continue following it. It's a bloody joke. It's a bloody joke. that people were parking all over the place. This is an inquiry to determine the circumstances for having invoked the Emergencies Act, the War Measures Act, and people were getting assaulted. Do you know who? I have no idea. Did you see a police report? I have no idea. I'm only a city councillor. Why would I know these things? Oh, maybe it's because they didn't happen. Just maybe. Oh, cars parked on the sidewalk? Bring in the military. These people there were weapons everywhere. There were weapons. There were 18-year-old driving weapons. Oh, okay. So that's the latest. You're all up to date on that now. But I want to show you this before we go. That's what I don't want to show you that because we just went over that. Moving on to a different subject. I'm just gonna, total parentheses. We have members of parliament who allegedly represent Canadians who have foreign flags in their official government bios and no Canadian flag. Ryan Turnbull. I haven't blocked yet. It was a pleasure to welcome Justin Trudeau to Whitby today. I know our seniors appreciate the visit and chance to connect. Improving the lives of our seniors continues to be a priority for the government. To all the town of Whitby, staff supporting our seniors, Canadian Poly. I don't know what CDN Poly is. I know it's a hashtag, but Canadian politics. And then you got this guy, Satan himself. Look at that face. I mean, that's a face that should scare anybody. You got that picture, okay? What's another one here? Oh yeah, show me what you're painting. I'm so interested. I mean, he's got just a scary look at this face. I will eat your children. Sorry. Okay, maybe whatever. All right, so that's Turnbull. Turnbull, member of parliament for Whitby. Are we seeing the same thing? Father, husband, social entrepreneur, and former CEO. I don't know what that. He's got the Ukrainian flag in his bio. Turnbull, if I'm taking a guess, is Scottish and not Ukrainian. Setting all that aside, this is a member of parliament. In his official Twitter handle, he's got a Ukrainian flag and no Canadian flag. It's not even that he has the Canadian flag after the Ukrainian flag. He's got a foreign flag in his official government bio, no Canadian flag, and I'm wondering why this is acceptable. And I also, maybe, am I getting too judgmental? Am I wrong in thinking that it's wrong, suspicious, odd, peculiar, arguably conflicted of interests for a Canadian parliamentarian to have a foreign flag in his official bio, where I'm sitting there thinking, who do you represent? Ukraine, Ukrainians, or Canada and Canadians? That's my parentheses. I don't understand how this is acceptable. It's not like he's a private citizen. It's not like that's his private citizen account. It's not like he has two flags. This man is announcing to Canadians, apparently, that he represents Ukraine. And it's not a Ukraine thing. If that were any other flag, I would take the same issue. The exception the conceptual moral explanation I can think is, all right, maybe he has dual citizenship, but I also have the same questions about anyone in government with dual citizenship. Turnbull, it's just a cool Ukrainian flag in his official government handle. Okay, and I see some rumble rants that I'm going to get to. Medic Deb says, thank you. Thank you, Medic Deb. That was a $10 rumble rant. Jack Hudler, the level of indoctrination is breathtaking. Not following rules, trucks are weapons, total indoctrination. That was a $5 rumble rant from Jack Hudler. TX47, a $2 rumble rant, says, I just figured out why California passed AB 5 and now Biden wants to take it national. Almost all trucker convoy protesters were independent owner-operators. And there was another $10 rumble rant that came in here. Medic Deb says, are they not proud of the Canadian flag? But even if just to not have a flag, this is like, I don't want to drop. If it were a member of government who had only the Russian flag, I would have the same problem. I would have the same questions. a member of Canadian government with a foreign flag in his official government bio. Israeli flag, I'd have the same question. Dual citizenship, I have the same issues. You represent a country and its people. And when you are quite clearly, literally showing your allegiance to a foreign country and a foreign people, the question is, who are you representing? Your own constituents who elected you, or foreign people, foreign interests? My goodness, and if I saw WEF, whatever the flag would be, I'd lose my poop. I'd lose it. But I said I would end and get to old Creepy Joe. Good old Creepy Joe. Hold on. I think I've got to go to a non-incognito Twitter for this. My God. Joe Biden and his behavior with young women is the stuff that you warn your children about. I'm not saying it to be funny. I'm saying it because it's gosh darn scary. Where's Joe? Sniffing the hairs of little girls. Look at this. Look at this. By the way, how do I pause? Watch the way Joe's Secret Service tries to get this guy not to record what is clearly inappropriate. You'll see the person in the back pointing his finger. Watch how absolutely, what's the word? Skin-tinglingly inappropriate this is. You got the Keanu Reeves, the Matrix, and then you got Joe Biden, the sniffy sniff.
Look at Dan. Now, very important thing.
Hands on shoulder, inappropriate. Inappropriate, Joe. I don't care who you are. Ooh.
Daughters and granddaughters, no serious guys in your 30s.
Okay. No what?
No serious guys in your 30s.
I'll keep that in mind.
Sorry, can you stop recording Joe being an absolute pervert?
At least.
It's dirty. It's dirty. No serious guys. Old men should not be talking to young girls about dating. Nor should adults be talking about children about dating, or other things for that matter. There's a word for it. Grooming is one of them. Pervert is another.
No serious guys.
Look at this girl's
in your
face.
30s.
Get your hands off me, old man. Okay. Why are you talking to me about this? This is weird and perverted, and I feel very uncomfortable right now, but you don't understand it.
No what?
No serious guys in your 30s.
I'll keep that in mind. At least.
I love this guy. Yeah, please don't do it. Can you? This is very embarrassing to the president. Secret Service is not there to protect the president from others. It's there to protect the president from himself. Oh, mamacita. Okay, people, that was fantastic. Thank you all for being here. I'm gonna go outside and see the havoc that the children have wreaked on the house. Oh man, and okay, you know what? Before we go, recommendations for a movie tonight. I don't think the children have seen Tommy Boy, and I don't think I've seen Tommy Boy in a long time. Daphne says, Viva, thank you for speaking your truth about dual citizenship. I am proud of you. As I said, I am a senior. Your Baba. It's not my truth. It's the truth. Dual citizenship is a problem. It's at least a concern, because you represent a country. If you always have an out to another country, well, you could sort of screw up the country you're supposed to be representing. So your loyalties are not entirely there. So yeah, Daphne. Trudeau is... I can't read the name or the comment. Andy, any day now, says, great show. Thank you very much. Yeah, creepy. The look on that poor kid's face and the other adults who don't acknowledge the wrongness. Eek 20, eek 2. It's not a complicated thing, period, people. Period. You keep your hands off other people's children, period. And you keep your hands off your own children, period, as well. You know, there's like kids get to certain ages where things are just not appropriate anymore. So what do I think? I think it's going to be Tommy Boy tonight. Waterboy is better, but we've seen Waterboy recently. Sound of Music. I want to enjoy the movie. I enjoyed First Time Here. Thanks for your videos. Original one. My pleasure. Thank you for being here. Most Canadian celebs have dual citizenship. This is from Hagbard72. The dual citizenship part is not the issue. I can understand citizens saying, I might, if I have, I don't know if you can have dual American Canadian. I know a lot of people with dual American Israeli. They say, okay, fine. If the shit hits the fan in one country, I'm going to go to another. When you represent that country, you're the captain of the ship. You don't get to say, I'm gonna run this ship into the ground and then jump ship into the not into the dinghy, but into the rescue ships, into the rescue boats that other people on this boat don't have access to. That's not how it works. Loyalty to country only when you're a member of parliament. A member of parliament. Let's see what we got here. Johnny Dangerously. Okay, Rush Hour and Johnny Dangerously. We can do that. I saw Rush Hour as an option. Johnny Dangerously, I think, might be too hard to find these days. You want to hump her brains out. But that's the one line I remember from Johnny Dangerously. It was the mother yelling at Michael Keaton saying, you want to hump her brains out. Ba-boom, ba-boom. I remember that one line from childhood when we saw that movie. That, and when they were on the run in the car and they were peeling off the layers of the exterior of the car to change the color so that when they were being tailed by the cops were kept on having to change the description of the car. Look Who's Talking. Ooh, there's some good Trading Places we've already seen. Uncle Buck we've already seen. Who else do we got? The Great Race. I don't know what that is. Is that supposed to be a play on Rat Race, or is The Great Race a bad movie? Look Who's Talking could be good. 3 Men and a Baby. Uncle Buck is the greatest movie ever made. Mrs. Doubtfire, they've already seen. House of a Thousand Corpses. I got one kid who had to make us turn off The Matrix because it was too violent. So no to that. All right, go enjoy the afternoon. I'm going to try to see if I can go jogging with one of the kids now. Make them go biking next to me so I can get my exercise. We're going to have a stream tomorrow night with Robert. It'll be amazing. Twins might be the winner. David Shambrook. Yeah. Okay, go. Enjoy the evening. Thank you all for being here. I'll keep up to date on the inquiry hearings. Probably go live at some point because it is actually much more fun to watch than I thought it was going to be, depending on the witnesses. The 14th was a good day. Tomorrow night, live with Barnes, and we'll see what happens between now and then. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for spending a Saturday afternoon with me. Now go forth, prosper, talk to people, make sure people around you are doing well. Conduct yourselves in such a manner that your parents, children, and pets would always be proud, and you could do no wrong. And I remember I'm supposed to give something of an outro video here because it's Rumble, and I'm not going to be able to do it today. So I'm gonna ramble and then show a black screen for a few seconds while Rumble comes to an end. Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Peace.